The night was alive with noise and light. The streets of the alien city glowed with neon signs, and strange creatures moved in every direction. But one man was not walking. He was running. His breath came fast, and sweat rolled down his face. His name was Daniel, a human who had come here looking for work. Instead, he had found trouble. Behind him, heavy footsteps echoed. They were not normal footsteps. Each step shook the ground, each sound closer than before. The debt collectors were after him. Daniel had borrowed money from the wrong people. He thought he could pay them back by working hard, but the city had eaten him alive. Prices were high, jobs were low, and now the collectors wanted his blood. He turned a corner, nearly colliding with a merchant who shouted at him in an alien tongue. Daniel did not stop. He could not stop. If they caught him, there would be no second chance. The collectors were not human. They were huge reptilian brutes, their green scales glistening under the streetlights. Their yellow eyes glowed like lamps in the dark. Everyone in the market scattered as soon as they saw them. Nobody wanted to get in their way. Daniel looked back and saw them pushing through the crowd, knocking over stalls and breaking glass without care. The city law would not protect him. Humans were nothing here. Daniel's lungs burned. His legs screamed for rest. But he forced himself forward, slipping through tight alleys and shadowed passages. The smell of smoke and food drifted from open kitchens, but he did not notice. All he heard was the pounding behind him, closer, louder. He had to hide. But where? He darted left into a narrow alley. It was darker here, damp and quiet, the neon lights fading into shadows. He pressed his back against the wall and tried to calm his breath. For a moment, he thought he had escaped. But then he heard voices deep and guttural, the language of his hunters. They were near. His heart pounded like a drum. He looked around desperately. At the end of the alley was a door, tall and marked with strange alien symbols. The letters curved like claws. Daniel had no idea what they meant. It could have been a store, a temple, or a home. He did not care. He pushed the door open and slipped inside. The air was warm and heavy with the scent of fabric and soap. His eyes adjusted, and he realized he had entered a laundry hall. Giant racks of clothing filled the room, the clothes big enough to cover him like a blanket. He looked up and froze. This was not a normal laundry. The clothes were strange tight training gear, heavy robes, and armor pieces. Each piece was massive, built for bodies much larger than his. Daniel swallowed hard. He remembered the rumors. This building belonged to a group of muscular alien women warrior girls, tall as trees and strong as machines. They were feared even by men of their own species. If they found him here, they might kill him before the collectors did, but there was no choice. The footsteps outside grew louder. He heard the door slam open again, but this time it was not the collectors. It was voices. Female voices, low and commanding, echoing down the hall. The owners had returned. Daniel's heart jumped into his throat. He had seconds to decide. He dove into a large basket filled with folded clothes. The fabric swallowed him, soft yet heavy, smelling faintly of flowers and sweat. He buried himself deep, trying not to move, not even to breathe. The voices came closer. He could hear laughter, boots hitting the floor, and the clinking of metal weapons. They were here, in the same room. He squeezed his eyes shut, praying the collectors outside would not look in, and the alien girls inside would not notice him. Then the door to the alley banged again. The collectors had entered the building. Daniel's blood turned to ice. He was trapped between two dangers. If the collectors searched the room, they would drag him out. If the alien women discovered him, they might crush him with their bare hands. He lay still, hidden among the laundry, his body trembling. Every sound was sharper now, the rustle of fabric, the thud of heavy boots, the growl of the hunters. His life hung by a thread, and one wrong move could cut it. Would he escape, or would this be the night he lost everything? Daniel did not dare to move. His body was buried deep in the pile of laundry, and every muscle inside him screamed to stay still. The sound of heavy boots shook the floor. Alien voices filled the room, some sharp with laughter, some low with command. He could not understand every word, but he knew they were the warrior girls who owned this place. The scent of the clothes around him was strange, like flowers mixed with steel. Some of the fabric felt soft and silky, while others were rough and heavy, meant for training or combat. Each piece was too large for him. He felt like a child hiding under the clothes of giants. His heart thudded against his chest. The collectors were inside the building now too. He could hear their deep growls as they spoke to the alien women. He pressed his ear against the fabric, listening. One of the collectors demanded something in a harsh voice. The warrior girl answered with a laugh that shook the walls. Her tone was mocking, powerful, unafraid. Daniel realized something. These women were not afraid of the collectors at all. In fact, they treated them like pests, but that did not make things safer for him. If the women discovered him, they would likely throw him out or worse. And if the collectors found him first, they would beat him until there was nothing left. He held his breath as the conversation grew louder. Suddenly, the sound of metal scraping filled the room. A blade. One of the women had drawn her weapon. The collectors shouted angrily, but then silence fell for a moment. Daniel's imagination ran wild. Was there about to be a fight? Would blood cover the laundry where he was hiding? Then came footsteps. Heavy ones moving closer. The floorboards groaned with every step. Daniel gripped the fabric tighter, sinking lower, trying to disappear. The basket shook slightly as something brushed against it. He almost cried out, but he bit down on his lip. A shadow fell across the clothes. He could see it through the small gap between the fabrics. A massive hand reached into the basket. The fingers were thick, tipped with dark claws. Slowly, the hand pushed the top clothes aside. Daniel froze, his body stiff as stone. But then, laughter erupted again. The hand pulled out a piece of fabric instead of tunic and tossed it across the room. The woman had not noticed him. Relief rushed through him, but only for a second. The danger was not over. The collectors were still searching. He heard them stomping closer, their voices filled with fury. They were saying something about humans, about how weak and useless they were. Daniel's fists clenched, but he knew he could not fight them. He was not strong enough. One of the women suddenly shouted, her voice like thunder. The room went silent. Then came the sound of boots retreating. Daniel realized she had ordered the collectors to leave. For a moment, he dared to hope. Maybe he was safe now, but his hope broke too soon. The collectors argued back, their voices sharp and filled with hate. The warrior women roared in anger. The sound of a fist slamming against wood echoed. Daniel trembled. If a battle started, he would be caught in the middle. The footsteps of the collectors moved again, and this time they were heading straight toward the laundry baskets. Daniel's blood turned cold. He imagined them flipping the basket, dragging him out like a rat, beating him in front of everyone. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. His body refused to move. All he could do was wait. Then, something unexpected happened. One of the warrior women stepped right in front of the basket. Her towering body blocked the collector's path. Her voice was calm but deadly, like steel ready to strike. She warned them not to touch what was hers. Daniel's heart skipped. Hers? Did she know he was hiding here? Or was she only protecting her space? He could not tell. The collectors snarled but did not dare to attack her directly. She was too strong, too dangerous. For now they held back. But Daniel knew they would not give up so easily. They wanted him. They would keep searching until they found him. The woman moved away, and Daniel could finally breathe again. But his relief was poisoned with dread. He realized something terrifying sooner or later. Someone would discover him. He was only a man hiding in a mountain of clothes, and his luck could not last forever. The room fell quieter, but Daniel's mind screamed with panic. He was trapped in a place that was not his, surrounded by powerful beings who might crush him if they knew he was here. And outside the walls, even worse monsters were waiting for his blood. Every second was a knife hanging over his head. Would he survive this night? Or was this the final mistake that sealed his fate? Daniel's body ached from holding still so long. The laundry pressed heavy on him, smothering his breath, but he dared not move. Every sound in the room felt sharp. Every laugh of the alien women. Every hiss from the collectors like a blade at his neck. The air was tense. A single wrong move could explode into violence. The leader of the collectors snarled something in his guttural tongue. Daniel could not understand the words, but the tone was clear: threats, curses, promises of pain. The warrior women only laughed louder. Their laughter was not soft. It was sharp, mocking, filled with power. These women feared no one. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. If the women decided to fight, he would be crushed under falling bodies and broken weapons. He imagined the claws of the reptilian hunters tearing through the fabric to drag him out. His heart hammered against his ribs, so loud he thought someone might hear it. One of the alien women suddenly stepped closer to the baskets. Her shadow fell directly over him. The floor creaked as she bent down. Daniel stopped breathing. Her hand brushed against the fabric, lifting a shirt so close that her fingers almost grazed his hair. He braced for the scream. For the moment she would rip the clothes away and drag him out before all of them, but it never came. She only inspected the shirt, sniffed it once, and tossed it over her shoulder. The shirt landed with a dull thud somewhere in the room. Then she turned and walked away, her boots thundering on the floor. Daniel's lungs finally pulled in air. His relief was sharp but fragile, because the danger was far from over. The collectors were still prowling like wolves, their yellow eyes glowing in the shadows. They argued with the women, spitting venom in their words. One of them slammed a fist against the wall, shaking the entire room. Daniel flinched under the laundry, praying nobody saw the basket twitched out. The leader of the women roared then. It was not laughter this time. It was a warning, a growl deep and dangerous. The collectors hesitated. For the first time, Daniel heard fear in their voices. Even these monsters respected the warrior women. Finally, boots thudded toward the door. The collectors cursed as they left, their threats echoing down the hall. The door slammed shut behind them. Daniel almost cried with relief. The danger had passed for now, but before he could relax, he heard one of the women speak in a calmer tone. Her voice was close. Too close. A heavy shadow fell again across the basket. She lingered there, breathing softly, as if she sensed something. Daniel's heart stopped. Did she know? Could she smell him under the clothes? Her hand reached out again, this time slower, deliberate. She touched the fabric on top, pressing down lightly. Daniel clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to scream. He felt the weight of her palm through the layers, pressing against his hidden body. For a moment, time froze. Then she pulled her hand back. She said something to the others, a word Daniel could not understand, and walked away. Laughter followed her. Daniel lay still for minutes, every nerve screaming. He knew now that he had been seconds away from being discovered. The women began to move deeper into the building, their voices fading down the hall. Daniel finally dared to lift his head a little. The room was empty now. He was alone. He pushed the clothes aside and gasped for air. His face was red, his shirt drenched in sweat. But his relief was poisoned with fear. The collectors were not gone forever. They would wait outside, hunting him like predators. And the women. If they discovered he had used their laundry as a hiding place, they might not forgive him. Daniel's mind raced. Should he stay hidden until dawn? Or should he try to escape before the women returned? Either choice carried death in its shadow. He wiped his face, forcing himself to stand. His legs trembled, but he walked carefully across the room, trying not to make noise. He reached the door, his hand hovering over the handle. One step could take him back to the outside world, but it could also throw him back into the jaws of the collectors. He froze when he heard a sound behind him. Soft creak of boots. Daniel turned slowly. His blood running cold. One of the alien women was standing there, tall and powerful, her arms crossed, her sharp eyes glowing in the dim light. She was looking straight at him. He was caught. Daniel's blood turned to ice as the alien woman's gaze locked onto him. She was tall, towering over him like a wall of muscle. Her skin glowed faintly under the neon light seeping through the windows, and her sharp tusks gleamed when she narrowed her eyes. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the sound of her slow, measured breathing. Daniel's first thought was to run. His hand still hovered near the door handle, but something in her eyes told him it would be useless. She would catch him before he even reached the street. Her arms were thick with strength, her frame built for battle. He was only a man, weak and trembling, while she was a warrior bred to crush enemies. Her voice came at last, deep and steady. The words were alien, but the meaning was clear. She was asking, demanding, what he was doing here. Daniel opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His throat felt dry, his tongue heavy. He tried again, whispering, "Please, don't call them back." The alien woman tilted her head. Her tusks glinted, and a curious look crossed her face. She stepped forward, each footfall shaking the floor slightly. Daniel stumbled back, pressing his body against the door. Her shadow fell over him completely now. Up close, he saw every detail: the scars across her arms, the faint blue veins pulsing under her skin, the smell of steel and wildflowers that clung to her clothes. Her presence was overwhelming, suffocating. Daniel's heart hammered so loudly he thought it might give him away even more. For a long moment, she only studied him. Her golden eyes scanned him from head to toe, as though weighing his worth. Then, to his shock, she laughed. It was not cruel, but it was not soft either. It was a laugh of disbelief, like she had never seen something so foolish. She barked something in her language, calling out to the others. Daniel panicked. His cover was blown. The other women would come, and then he would be surrounded. He slammed his hand on the door handle, ready to bolt, but before he could push it open, her massive hand clamped down on his shoulder. Her grip was like iron, unmovable. He gasped, struggling against it, but she did not let go. She pulled him away from the door with ease, as if he weighed nothing. The door to the hallway opened, and two more warrior women entered. Their laughter filled the room when they saw the human caught like a thief in their home. One of them teased him in broken human tongue, her words heavy with an accent. "Little man." Hiding? Daniel's face burned. He wanted to shout, to explain, but no words came. His fear strangled him. He could only shake his head, his lips trembling. The first woman, still gripping him, spoke again. Her tone was firmer now, commanding. She pushed him toward the center of the room, where the piles of laundry surrounded them like mountains. The other women circled, curious, watching him like hunters studying strange prey. Daniel tried to speak at last. "Please, I was only hiding. They were after me. The debt collectors. They'll kill me." His words spilled out fast, desperate, almost breaking into sobs. The women exchanged glances. They understood. They may not have cared about his kind, but they knew what debt collectors were. One of them spat on the floor, muttering something sharp in her tongue. The woman holding him loosened her grip slightly, but did not release him. She studied him again, this time more carefully. There was no pity in her eyes, but there was something else: interest. She leaned close, her face inches from his, her tusks sharp, her breath hot. In a low growl she whispered in broken human words, slow and heavy, You. Mine now. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. He did not understand. Did she mean she would protect him? Or did she mean she owned him as property, like a captured pet? The room filled with laughter again, the other women amused by her claim. Daniel's body shook. He had escaped the collectors, but now he was in the hands of something just as dangerous. The alien woman released his shoulder at last, but her eyes never left him. She gestured toward the laundry basket where he had hidden. Then she pointed at him again, her meaning clear. She had known he was there all along. Daniel's knees weakened. He felt small, powerless, caught in a web he could not escape. The collectors might have left the building, but he was not free. He had been discovered, claimed, and whatever fate the warrior women decided for him would come swiftly. He stood in silence, his breath uneven, waiting for their judgment. Would they hand him over, protect him, or crush him where he stood? The night was not over. His nightmare had only changed shape. Daniel's legs felt weak, almost ready to give out. The alien women surrounded him like walls of muscle, their golden eyes glowing in the dim light. Laughter still echoed between them, but behind that laughter was something else: curiosity, interest, a strange spark he could not read. The tallest woman, the one who had caught him, stood directly in front of him. She crossed her arms over her chest, the muscles of her shoulders flexing like steel. Her scars glistened faintly, proof of battles fought long before this night. When she spoke, her voice was low and commanding, like thunder rolling in the distance. Daniel could not understand all her words, but he caught a few in broken human tongue. You small, weak, but brave? Her tusks shone when she smiled faintly, and Daniel's heart raced. Brave? He did not feel brave at all. He felt like a rat caught in a trap. But maybe she saw something else in him. The other women circled closer, speaking in their own language. Some laughed at him, some pointed at his clothes, and one even reached out to poke his arm, as if testing how soft a human really was. Daniel flinched at the touch, but he did not pull away. He was frozen, trapped, unsure what to do. Finally, the tall woman raised her hand, silencing the others. She stepped forward again, her boots heavy against the wooden floor. Then she reached out and gripped Daniel's chin, lifting his face to meet her eyes. Her strength was undeniable. He could not resist, even if he tried. In ours, she said slowly, her accent thick. Now, you belong. Daniel's stomach dropped. Belong? Did she mean he was safe? Or did she mean he was their prisoner? He wanted to ask, to beg for mercy, but his voice caught in his throat. The women laughed again at his silence. They seemed amused by his fear, yet none of them hurt him. It was as if they enjoyed watching him squirm. But behind their eyes was something serious too, a quiet decision forming that Daniel could not understand. Then the door banged open. Everyone turned. The collectors were back. Their heavy boots and sharp growls filled the room. This time they did not speak with false politeness. They demanded. Their leader pointed directly at Daniel, his yellow eyes glowing like fire. His voice was filled with venom. Human, ours. Daniel froze, his blood cold. He was caught between two forces now, the collectors and the warrior women. Both were powerful, both dangerous. He was only a man, too small to matter, yet somehow all their eyes were on him. The tall woman stepped forward before Daniel could speak. She placed one massive hand on his shoulder, pressing down hard enough to keep him still. Then she looked at the collectors, her eyes burning like molten gold. She growled something in her tongue, sharp and final. The meaning was clear, even without translation. No, he is ours. The room went silent. Daniel's heart pounded. She had claimed him openly now, not as a joke, not as a tease, but as a declaration. The collectors hissed in fury. Their claws scraped against the floor as they stepped closer. The women tensed, their muscles flexing, their hands reaching for weapons. The air was heavy with the promise of violence. Daniel wanted to run, to disappear. But the hand on his shoulder held him like iron. He was no longer invisible. He was the reason for the storm about to break. The leader of the collectors roared, his voice shaking the room. He pointed again, spitting out words filled with hate. But before he could finish, the tall woman drew her blade. The sound of metal cut through the silence. The other warrior women followed, weapons flashing in the dim light. The collectors hesitated, their eyes narrowing. A fight here would be bloody, even for them. Daniel's breath came in quick gasps. He could not believe this was happening. A few hours ago, he had only been running for his life, a human nobody in a city that did not care. And now he was standing at the center of a war between monsters. The tall woman's grip tightened, steady and unshakable. She looked down at him for a brief second, her golden eyes fierce. "You stay," she said simply. Daniel's knees trembled. He had no choice. He was trapped between blades, claws, and muscle. The collectors growled again, preparing to charge. The warrior women spread out, ready to strike, and Daniel, helpless and terrified, realized he had been truly claimed. The first battle cry ripped through the night. The fight for him had begun. The room exploded with noise. The reptilian collectors roared, their sharp claws glinting under the neon glow. The warrior women bared their tusks, their golden eyes flashing with fire. Daniel stood frozen in the middle of it all, his body trembling, his heart hammering so hard it hurt. The tall woman who had claimed him shoved him backward, pushing him against the wall. Her voice was sharp, commanding, "Stay." Then she turned, her massive frame blocking him like a shield. Daniel could only watch as the two forces collided. The first collector lunged forward, his claws swiping at the woman's chest. But she moved faster than Daniel thought possible. Her blade flashed, sparks flying as steel met scale. She twisted her body and slammed her fist into the creature's jaw. The impact shook the walls. The collector stumbled back with a snarl, blood dripping from his mouth. Two more collectors charged, their bodies massive, their teeth bared. But the other warrior women leapt to meet them, their weapons slicing through the air with deadly precision. The sound of metal against bone echoed through the hall, mixed with shouts, growls, and the thud of heavy bodies crashing into furniture. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, too afraid to move. The fight was chaos, but it was also terrifyingly beautiful. The alien women fought with strength and grace, their muscles rippling as they struck. Every swing of their blades carried the weight of power. Every step shook the ground. They were not ordinary women, they were warriors born for this. But the collectors were monsters too. One of them slammed his tail against the floor, the shockwave sending laundry baskets flying into the air. Clothes scattered everywhere, falling like giant leaves. Daniel ducked, shielding his head, his breath ragged. He knew if he stayed here, he could be crushed at any moment. One of the women was thrown across the room, crashing into a wooden rack that shattered into pieces. She stood again, wiping blood from her lip, and roared in fury. The collectors laughed, their voices deep and cruel. The tall woman, still fighting near Daniel, blocked another strike and countered with a brutal knee to the collector's chest. He coughed blood, but more kept coming. It felt endless. Daniel's fear turned into a desperate thought. If they lost, he would be dragged out by the collectors, beaten until there was nothing left. But if the women won, what then? Would they let him live, or keep him as their prize? Either way, his fate was tied to this battle. Suddenly, a clawed hand reached for him. One of the collectors had slipped past the fight, his yellow eyes glowing with hunger. Daniel froze as the monster's shadow fell over him. Before the claws could close around his neck, the tall woman spun and slashed. Her blade cut across the collector's arm, spraying dark blood on the floor. She roared something fierce in her own tongue, her voice shaking Daniel's bones. The collector howled, stumbling back in pain. Daniel gasped, his chest heaving. She had saved him, again, but the fight was far from over. The collectors regrouped, snarling, circling the women like wolves. Their leader stepped forward, his scales shining, his claws dripping with blood. He was larger than the rest, his presence crushing. He raised his weapon high, pointing it at Daniel. The message was clear. The human was the prize. The tall woman growled in return, her blade raised, her body tense like a storm ready to strike. The other women joined her side, forming a wall of muscle and steel. Daniel could not breathe. He was the reason this war was happening. He was the reason blades and claws were drawn. And now the biggest monster of them all was ready to claim him. The leader of the collectors roared, shaking the entire hall. The warrior women roared back, their voices uniting like thunder. Daniel's heart pounded as the two sides prepared for the final clash. And he realized there was no going back. The laundry hall shook as both sides prepared for the last strike. The reptilian collectors hissed, their leader's claws dripping with blood. The warrior women growled back, their golden eyes blazing, blades raised. In the middle of it all, Daniel stood against the wall, his body trembling, his breath shallow. The leader pointed his weapon directly at him. "The human is ours," his voice thundered. Even though Daniel barely understood the words, he knew the meaning. They would not stop until they dragged him away. The tall woman stepped forward, blocking the view of Daniel with her massive frame. Her blade gleamed, and her voice cut through the air like steel. "No, he stays." The two sides clashed with a roar. The leader charged first, swinging his heavy weapon at the tall woman. She blocked it with her blade, sparks flying, but the force pushed her back. The floor cracked under their weight. Another collector lunged at her side, but one of the other warrior women leapt forward, smashing her axe into his shoulder. Blood sprayed across the walls. The hall became a storm of violence, claws ripping through wood, blades slashing through scale, bodies crashing against the floor. Laundry flew into the air like torn banners. Daniel ducked, covering his head, the chaos shaking every bone in his body. The leader was stronger than the rest. He pressed the tall woman hard, their blades locking, their eyes burning. With a sudden twist, he shoved her back, his claws grazing her arm. Blood streaked down her skin, but she only growled, pushing forward again with fury. Daniel's fear turned into something else. For the first time, he felt anger. These women were risking their lives for him, a human stranger who had nothing. They could have thrown him out, yet they stood between him and death. He looked around desperately. On the floor near him lay a broken spear, dropped in the fight. His hands shook as he grabbed it. The weapon was too heavy for him, but he held it anyway, his heart pounding. The leader of the collectors raised his claw again, ready to strike the tall woman down. Daniel did not think he moved. With a cry, he charged forward, driving the broken spear into the monster's side. The spear barely pierced the thick scales, but it was enough. The leader roared in pain, stumbling back. The tall woman saw her chance. She swung her blade with all her strength, slashing across his chest. Dark blood poured out as the leader fell to his knees. Gasping, the other warrior women pressed the attack, striking down the remaining collectors with fury. One after another, the reptilian monsters fell, their bodies crashing to the ground until only silence filled the hall. Daniel dropped the spear, his arms trembling, his chest heaving. His knees buckled, and he sank to the floor, covered in sweat and fear. The tall woman stood over the fallen leader, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. She looked down at the corpse, then at Daniel. Her golden eyes softened not with pity, but with respect. She walked to him, crouching low so her face was level with his. Her voice was deep, steady, small, but strong. The other women laughed, but this time it was not mocking. It was warm, approving. One clapped Daniel lightly on the shoulder, nearly knocking him over. Daniel's heart still raced, but something inside him shifted. For the first time in a long time, he did not feel like PR.